6.0, reconvene open session. 6.1, call to order. The Board of Trustees are hereby reconvening open session at 7:59 p.m. 6.2, roll call. Trustees to identify themselves by first and last name to formally establish quorum. Bill Millinger, Trustee Area 1.
Deanna Ridlin, Trustee Area 2.
Cindy Gardner, Trustee Area 3.
We have a quorum. 7.0, closed session report. Announcement of reportable actions taken during closed session. The one thing we have to report is that Jordan Zarati entered our meeting at 4:06 p.m. and left the meeting at 7:48 p.m. There are no other reportable actions from closed session. 8.0, public testimony. Public comment period for items listed on this agenda and non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the governing board. Do we have any public testimony?
We have none.
Okay, thank you. We will move to 8.3, RTA and CSEA representatives.
None at this time.
Thank you. 9.0, reports and presentations. 9.1, local control and accountability plan. LCAP, report of social emotional learning, SEL, English language arts, ELA, and math for the 2021-2022 school year. Heather, the distinguished Heather Dominguez, Director of Educational Services. Fight on.
Right on. Yes. All the time, Jordan.
Thank you. Well, good evening, board and superintendent and cabinet members and members of the audience. 8 o'clock on a Thursday night to talk about LCAP and CASP and ELA and math. Woohoo! So we're going to spice things up a little bit tonight. All right, awesome. I have some folks that have come along with me to help with this. So I'm going to try to move on through my piece because I'm really excited about what the two gentlemen that are here this evening, Mr. Wallace, our TOSA, and Mr. Lonzo, our math intervention teacher, and some of the things happening in the land of ELA and math that they are helping to facilitate. So LCAP board discussion. Oh,
and it's probably off.
So first of all, just sort of grounding us again in terms of the connection between the dashboard, the local data, and our LCAP. We do know that the dashboard has been suspended, so we don't have a lot of dashboard data, and data is a difficult thing this year to look at. We're looking really more at baseline kinds of things. But that the LCAP is our vehicle for the LA to review its progress, articulate our plans to address the areas identified need, and communicate its plan to our educational partners. And our goal is always to improve student outcomes. So this PowerPoint presentation is more about some resources for you as the board to have some, you're going to have an LCAP discussion later on during the workshop. So I'm going to kind of go through these quickly because you can refer back to them in terms of some of the data points. The first 3 slides is a compilation, and I believe I also included some of this in the Friday update, but this is just a Jamboard that we did at our final LCAP stakeholders meeting, where our participants were able to brainstorm some ideas about how we might be able to improve each one of our goals. Goal number 1, increase learning and support professional development. So you can see some of their thoughts on that particular goal. The second, there we go. The second goal, positive and safe climate. You can see some of their responses there. And then our third, whoops. Wow. Our third goal is family engagement. We'll just move on to metrics.
It's in our PDF though, just
Okay, good.
it isn't.
So the next piece is on metrics. And the first metric we're going to, I'm going to give you some information about is not social emotional, but CASP, which is apropos as we are in the CASP season right now. Lots of testing going on for ELA, math, science. And so I wanted to distribute a handout that will give you our past data. And we've talked about this in the past, but I also wanted you to have it fresh for this evening.
This is going to say, talk about number of participants, how it's increasing.
This is actually our CASP data from last school year. So this is more of like, as I said earlier, more baseline data, but it does give you information about where we performed last year, recognizing that we were in distance learning, we were in hybrid, we were in active pandemic mode. So lots of things happening. So this just gives you an indication of our overall ELA and mathematics scores, as well as the breakdown by grade level. Remembering that we did not administer the CASP in grades 3 through 5, but only in 6, 7, 8, and 11. We use the STAR for our 3rd through 5th graders. So this gives you ELA and math CASP information as well as LPAC data. The next piece is social emotional, which we utilize our Kelvin Pulses to measure how we are doing in terms of social emotional. We are actually also in the process of an active pulse this week. So Boogie the Dog, which I know there's lots of different sentiments out there about Boogie the Dog. Some people really like it and some people find it somewhat annoying, but it is the way that we gather some data about social emotional. We are in our 5th pulse currently, and so it closes on Friday. And so the data that is on the next few slides is our student pulse, staff pulse, and family pulse trends overall for the last 4 pulses. And I also gave each of the different dimensions that are being assessed on those pulses and the percentages on each of those questions. So that's these slides here. I'll just go through quickly. I also have given you some Care Solace data in terms of the kinds of referrals Care Solace is seeing and the groups that they are seeing the referrals from. So we are getting, that is being utilized quite a bit in terms of a resource to support for social emotional wellness. Just very quickly, what we do with this data in terms of how we responsive to it. The Kelvin Pulse, we collect data every 4 to 6 weeks. Then we meet with our teams, the PBIS teams analyze the school data and teachers analyze their classroom data. Then the PBIS teams and classroom teachers make instructional decisions based on some of the data that they see. Then they focus their SEL and their PBIS instruction. They can use the toolbox in Kelvin. They can use their SEL lessons that they have from their curriculum. And then reflection. How well have we achieved our desired goals? Have our pulses met our student, staff, and family needs? And are we making the needed adjustments? So that's kind of an inquiry cycle that we go through with our PBIS teams.
Question with this, it's for secondary, how are teachers able to know about their specific students?
Each student has a teacher, there's a dashboard that they can go in and view. And we've realized there were some glitches this year in our system because Mark knows more about all of this, but they were rostering with Clever last year. And this year they went to a full Aries integration where they were pulling over the information directly from Aries, which is actually better. But in the process of making that transition, we had some data that wasn't being pulled over. And so we actually had some teachers come to us and say, I'm not being able to view my data for my students. And it was because it was how we were being rostered in the new system. So we have since met with Kelvin as a team, and we have corrected that error. So this pulse, they should be able to see that information.
So teachers can see data for each of their individual classes, or are they seeing at the student level, or just based on all of the students that they have in all of their classes?
No, I'm not really sure to be honest with you. I'd have to check on PBI's TOSA on that one in terms of how it is on the teacher end. I'm not sure how the secondary level. I know for the elementary, it's just they can see their class.
I'm just wondering how actionable it might be at the secondary level when they do get that information.
Well, and that's why I think the PBIS team comes together and they review it as a team and then share out with the staff, is my understanding of kind of how that happens at the second grade level. And the next slide is just kind of some things that we've learned. There have been some glitches along the way in terms of how the data has been displayed, and we've had to work through those. But that's with anything, you're going to have bumps in the road. So we try to be proactive. Planning takes time. Mistakes and glitches are going to happen. Be relevant. The types of questions we ask are important. One of the things we've discussed this year, and I know Bill was in some of our LCAP meetings, where we need more student voice in terms of, are we asking the right questions about the things that are really happening? There may have been a mismatch between what we're asking and what the kids are really needing us to ask. So that was kind of an aha for us this year. Be relational. It's important to hear everyone's voice. We need to be responsive and ready to respond to the data. We want to be supportive. Have the staff. Do we have the staff to support the students? And one of the things in Kelvin is that students can request an adult to reach out to them. And our counselors, the first time we gave the pulse, we weren't quite as responsive. But now that we've been doing it for a couple of years, our counselors are just right on it. They get a list. I get notified if there's students who are reaching out. Just had a conversation with our elementary counselor the other day about some students that reached out, and there were some needs that were addressed because of that. So that was really good to hear. And we want to be thoughtful. There's something called the heat map in Kelvin that really shows all the demographics of our students, and do we have a particular student group that is underserved or who is not feeling as included as another group. And we haven't really been using the heat map as much as we could be. So that's sort of an aha for next year in terms of using that as a piece to help guide our actions.
Heather, is that confidential? Is that something that we see sometime that heat map?
If you want to come on by, it's not something I could share out,
Right.
but if you want to stop by my office, I could pull up the heat map and absolutely show you what that looks like.
Thank you.
So now we're going to transition into sort of the ELA and mathematics side of the house. And at the beginning of the school year, we had, at the latter part of last school year, we had Jay Westover from Innovate Ed who came and talked to the board about systematic change, looking at systems and how systems impact the outcomes that we get. And we've been doing a lot of work this year on systems with the support of our TOSAs. Even with some of this disjointed, we've had TOSA leave, we've had TOSAs have to go back in the classroom because of, needing to fulfill classroom responsibilities, but we've still been able to move forward with some of that work. So in your packet, this is sort of our guideline in terms of moving some of that work forward. Having the site leadership teams really drive much of the change that's happening at the schools. And these are the 4 key drivers for school improvement: clarity of focus, shared leadership, collective expertise, and continuous improvement. And as our team came together and worked with Innovate Ed, we identified the areas in yellow as some focus areas for us to move to be improving our practice in. So we're really trying to put multiple measures of student performance and well-being, our assessment components, our benchmarks, our checkpoints, what are we expecting our kids to learn, and how do we know they're learning it? Putting that really into having more clarity in that department, and then having our school site teams really move some of that work forward. So this is a rubric that we're using to help us move some of this work forward so that we become better at these 4 areas, because we have found that if you're good at these 4 things, that it will really drive positive outcomes. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my language arts and math folks to talk a little bit about things that are happening at the school sites, because we know that no positive change for kids is going to happen unless it's happening at the classroom level. So really, the people you need to hear from are the people who are working with our classroom teachers every day and who are working with our students every day, because that's where the rubber meets the road. So, Mr. Wallace, would you come on up? Pass the baton.
Hello, everyone. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
You're in the way.
I will start by saying I've been censored. My first slide was changed. And my first joke was, "Oh, go in." So we'll get past it. So obviously this is complicated work, and obviously we can spend hours talking about all of the things, but so I'm gonna give you a snapshot. Also, Mr. Lonzo is gonna kind of fill in some gaps. So I may just, if you ask a question, I may say, maybe we can ask it after Mr. Lonzo goes because it's connected. So we're just going to give you a picture of instruction. I broke this down again, kind of like last year. We went from, starting with those two questions, right? What do we want students to learn and be able to do? And how do we know they learned it? So starting with instruction, we spent some time in the area of guaranteed viable curriculum, right? What are we teaching? And is it viable? Can we do it in a year? So we have our MPH collections as the adoption for English. They do use it. And we did some mapping this year with them. And then our big focus this year with Ms. Whiteside at Helm is developing the assessment calendars, which is really our scope and sequence all encompassing. So put a lot of work in developing what we're doing, what standards we're teaching, and when, and then the assessment piece is sort of still, which I have a slide on assessment, so we'll go there next. But and then also adding our common formative assessments into it so we can track that, which is a lot of work outside of working in the classroom. Implementation of UDL has been a big focus at MPH. We are turning a corner on that. We just met with Katie Novak the other day, and we are moving from where they're presenting to now we're going to start acting, right? There's the information has been given, and now we've got to start doing work. So we made an intentional decision to move that direction next year. So, and this last session will be moving towards more of that direction as the teachers have developed enough information and are ready to start practicing. And Mountain High School is working with consultants, so they in English they're still using StudySync. Brian Sturman is using that, and obviously where good programming, he's really proficient with it. Even one. RHS right now is on their second year of adoption with SAVIS, and yes, it's pronounced SAVIS. The scope and sequence development was a big turn this year. We had Kira from Innovate Ed spent some time with the English team, and we have developed a really, really powerful document that the whole team has worked together on. And we have one more session, I believe one more session on June 9th with the whole team. And that is quite a bit of progress because that team has been, and I was a part of that team. When you build, spend years developing your curriculum on your own without the help of it's pretty hard to let go of things and move together. So having Kira was a really, really great opportunity, and watching her work with the team, being an outsider was really helpful. And so that's a lot of progress. And then again, I'll say next steps is assessments for that, because we've got to align first and then build the assessment. So choosing those standards, mapping them, but we made a lot of progress in 2 short meetings. They were long, but they were short in the scope of what the work is. So the next one is assessment for ELA. So developing useful assessment calendars, right? Using them is the key, and that's a different thing than turning against. I know we work together. Yeah, useful. Our biggest, I would say the win this year with assessments is our movement toward student data checks. And I'll elaborate more with math and Crystal as well, but both with EL and with our English and math teams, we really started to talk to the students about their scores. And our big, Chris and I did presentations in all the English and math classes on STAR reports, and we spoke to the students and we provided them feedback. So our STAR scores were the impetus for giving our students some opportunity to talk about assessment. So ELA and math, if you look at my PowerPoint, they're basically the same. we have all those assessments and they are being used. And obviously a healthy assessment system looks pretty comprehensive. We have, obviously a lot more than that, but those are the ones that are really our focus. ICAs is a big implementation this year. We're doing full scale testing of the whole high school. And that's another conversation on another day, perhaps. But we tested 9th and 10th graders with the ICAs as if they were taking the 11th grade test. So they took a full comprehensive math and a full comprehensive English during block periods. I didn't make a lot of friends with 9th and 10th graders, nor did Mr. Lonzo, but we did learn a lot, about how we are building a culture of taking these tests seriously and learning about them as teachers and as, where can we improve. So that's our big takeaway for CASP on a lot of work over the last few weeks and probably more. So there's the STAR report. This is the STAR family report. We brought these to every student at the high school. Middle school, we provided them also. The teachers handed them out themselves, and they were asked to have a parent sign them. At the high school, we really just spent the time giving them to the students and talking about the report and explaining what it was and going over each component. And we also prepped them for CASP with these conversations. So we had three tests. It took it 3 times this year. I can't think of the word, but administrations is the word I wanted. And we went in twice. Mr. Lonzo and I sometimes partnered, sometimes we did separately in different subjects according to our schedules. A lot of our teachers liked having more adults in the room to share and liked hearing from Chris and I from different perspectives, math and English. So I would say our students started to, we asked them to share this with their families. We asked them to share it with an advocate, whoever that is. And if they don't have one, we have lots here at the school. So, and then we also shared their overall report all the times they've taken STAR. Many of the high schools have taken it as elementary students, so they can see this line of progress. And for the majority of our students, there was an upward line, which is pretty awesome, right? So it was nice. And then the ones that didn't, Heather witnessed a few of our one of our sessions, and one of the students would say, "Well, yeah, mine went down because I didn't try." So it goes back to our goal was, really having that growth mindset opportunity for students. And, a lot of accounts of students actually asking either their teachers for scores, asking for retakes, asking for data, asking for another opportunity was really powerful. And then obviously using this with our English learners and all that. So there was a lot of good conversations that we were able to have with the students and with our partners as colleagues in the room, so they could model for them as well and share data as we implement STAR this year. So that's where a lot of our time went on, again, scratching the surface. And that's about all I have. And I think what Mr. Lonzo has to present is to show you kind of where we feel we've created some opportunities for what we see as a successful model with the team and moving forward. So I'll bring up the one and only Mr. Christopher, I don't know what his middle initial is, but even better, Mr. Lonzo, the usual spelling. Come on up. Christopher Todd Lonzo.
First slide of mine. This is.
Oh, that's. Sorry.
Oh, no, momento.
Okay.
Por favor.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. There we go.
Thanks for letting me know, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, there we go. So I'm Chris Lonzo. I'm the math interventionist and AP statistics teacher at Graham High. And this segment of the presentation is a brief history and current state, future work of the math department at Graham. So when I arrived at Graham, I thought it was a liberating experience for me. So when I got here, I felt like experimentation was okay, that I was trusted in my classroom to use my professional judgment, and I felt like my colleagues trusted me as a member of the team who was there for the good of the team. And what that led to was a free exchange of ideas. And once we had a free exchange of ideas, then we really had a team. And I'm starting the story with trust because all of the great work that I'm going to explain after this slide, the rest of the presentation, it wouldn't be possible without a functioning team, and also a connection of teams. So not only is our team working well, but the other teams that we have to bring in to do all the great work and look for those and to get those big systematic changes that we're after. I don't get to take credit for the culture of trust that was at RIM when I got there, but all the thanks to that goes to the people that were there before me, like Jim Wilson and Jordana Ridlin, Susan Williams, and many others I'm sure that I'm just not aware of. But once I figured out that was going on and that how important it really was to the work that we were doing, I've done everything that I can since then to try and keep it going. And then we got super lucky. So we got super lucky in three big ways. We had some great team members join us. Some were already there, but it was nice to start seeing some teams come together and move things forward. We got Laura Williams, who is a saint and does a tremendous amount of work for the school, probably too much. Tyler Dumers knows his content very well and is dedicated to improving his craft. We got Ashley Cheney, another math teacher, math member, who brought us a wealth of knowledge and experience on standards-based learning. We got Steve Wallace, who really has a skill in meeting teams where they are and kind of delivering the perfectly timed and appropriate professional development, among other things. We got Tori Burke, principal, who gave us the permission and support that we needed to be a decision-making body and an autonomous group. We got Heather Dominguez, who gave us a lot of the same support and in special regards to the time that it takes to really select a great curriculum and provide the professional development that we needed. We got Mark Malone, who helps us with just about everything, but from getting our textbooks into Google Drives for the students to getting clean data out of Aries that we can and exporting data out of Aries. He helps us with just about everything. And then Cindy Gardner, who helps us kind of navigate the school site council process and the SIPSA process to get us the funding that we needed for a big supplies and equipment refresh this year. And so many others, right? So there's counseling team that's involved and so many other teams that are involved, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning all these people is because I think this is really what it takes to create the big systematic changes that we're trying to achieve, right? It's not just a math team, it's look at how many different teams we have involved here. We have math team members, we have ed services members, we have administration team, we've got technology team, we've got school site council, school board, and site leadership team, and more that aren't listed there. And that's the connection of the teams that I'm talking about that it takes to drive those big changes that we want. Math team by themselves just can't do it alone. And we got lucky in two other big ways. COVID is terrible, but it also presented us with a couple of really valuable opportunities. One was a whole lot more PLC time. So during distance learning, we had collaboration time, more than an hour of it built into our daily schedule, thanks to the work that Tori did. And math team really didn't miss an opportunity to meet. We met every day. And through that work, that's when our path really started to clarify. And we also got the creation of the math interventionist position, which I felt was like a real game changer for a bunch of reasons, but a couple in particular. And that is that I think a person in a strategic position like that one can do a couple of things. One is to supercharge the meeting time of a team, and the other one is to have an opportunity to connect all of those critical teams that I'm talking about to move a decision forward in a way that a team of full-time math teachers just simply cannot, mostly due to time constraints in their daily lives. So the way I think I envision it playing out, and the way largely that it has played out this year, is that a team will get together to meet about a particular topic. A strategist or a person in a strategic position like that one can come in and say, okay, here's what we talked about last time. Here's the work that you ordered. Here is some relevant research on the topic we're discussing. Here is what our own data is telling us about this topic. And here's some professional learning that we can engage in to learn more about this topic so that we can make an informed decision. And so then the team is in a better position to make an efficient and informed decision, and it can act more like a decision-making body, which is really maximizing the time, the precious time that a team like that team has when they meet together. So then once a decision is made, the strategist can then go off and spend that time connecting all those critical teams together in a way that math team just can't, right? Let's see. So during distance learning, when we had all the collaboration time, that's when our path really started to clarify. And one of the first things that we realized was that we simply just don't have enough time in the school year to treat all of the standards with the same level of attention. It's not possible for anybody. So some of the standards are more important than others. So we needed to prioritize, right? And that's when Steve came in and saw where we were and said, well, let me introduce you to Doug Reeves. He's talking about power standards. This sounds like what you're talking about. And so we attended a series of webinars, and at the end of it, we had our first power standards documents, and we had our first assessment calendars. And that was kind of really the first step down a good path. This is when we were starting to kind of like get some foresight and gain some momentum. And then distance learning ended. We came back in a hybrid model, and our collaboration time kind of got reduced significantly. And that's kind of how the progress ended for the year. New school year, the beginning of this school year starts, the beginning of fall 2021, and we get Ashley. And Ashley comes with lots of experience and knowledge in standards-based learning, and she comes to the team and says, "Hey, I think I want to do my Math 1 class standards-based learning style. What do you guys think about that?" And having the team that we have, built on trust, functioning team, the team says, "Yeah, that sounds good, and I think maybe we should all do it that way," which is great. And then Steve comes in and says, "Hey, well, let me introduce you to Marzano. He's got this process, right? He's got this process to do exactly what you want to do." And then Heather and Steve worked together to bring us this awesome training, which was on Saturday, February 5th, so exactly 3 months ago. Happened to be right in between the babies. So we actually planned it that way. So Laura was coming back from having her baby, and it was before Ashley was going to have her baby. And the amazing team that they are came in on Saturday all day on February 5th to kind of learn about this process. And we had a great time, and we learned a lot. And at the end of it, we had a roadmap. We had a process of how we can move forward and make some big changes. And the roadmap looks like this. So, we're gonna start with prioritizing standards, right? What do the students need to know and be able to do? We're gonna build proficiency scales for each of those priority standards. Then we'll map out the curriculum. So what's the year, is the curriculum gonna be viable? That's what Steve was talking about during his presentation. We have enough time in the year to address all the things that we think are priorities. Then we need to develop the standards aligned assessments that go along with those priority standards. And finally, develop a communication strategy that includes a grading system and also an education piece for all of our educational partners. So, and that piece is really about bringing clarity to teaching and learning and engaging the community. So where we are right now with this currently is for Math 1, we have all the priority standards selected. We have a good jump on our proficiency scales. 3 of them are complete. 4 of them are mostly complete and just need a bit more work. We have a sample of a curriculum map. We have some standards aligned assessments, and we have pieces of a communication strategy for complicated things. So we have a grading system, and we have some ideas that we'd like to put in place to bring clarity to our educational partners and engage them. But that needs further work. So the next steps. So we need to finish what we started in Math 1 and replicate the parts that are working in other teams, probably starting with Math 2, and then going up from there. We need to further develop our multi-tiered system of supports. So that's addressing the PLC questions 3 and 4. What do we do when students don't learn what we want them to? And what do we do when students do learn what we want them to? And Marzano says that this has a lot to do with small group instruction. And I think all of us, our secondary teachers, can learn a lot from elementary teachers in this regard. And another team that can be connected, right? Yep. Another team that we need to make those big systematic changes that we're after. And then we need to expand our communication strategy. So how are we going to gain that clarity? Who do we need to talk to, and how are we going to get the information out and engage people in the process? And refine our inquiry short cycle. How we're going to systematize our approach to improving, right? So that we can do it in a shorter time cycle than a year, because if you wait for a year, it's not really improving. If your cycle is a year long, it's too long to actually improve. And I'll end with just saying that I think we need to keep the focus on continuing to bring people and programs together and teams together. I think that's going to be the key for driving the big changes that we're having. Yeah. Questions?
I love this presentation because it tells the story of where we've been and where we want to go and where we're currently at, but where we want to go in a story. And it's just brilliant. Thank you so much. Like it's like a little book and it's so great. I'm also, especially having student discussion today with Jordana and the leadership team, one thing that came up unexpectedly was a student had taken her math placement test and for college and failed. And she told her story, which was a sad story about her math path. And my heart broke to see somebody tear up because they failed because we failed in keeping consistency of teachers and also in this kind of focus and vision to make sure that every child doesn't fail a math placement test. It broke my heart and I felt like a failure. So this is great. Got a lot to say.
Go for it. Ready?
All right, for starters, thank you. I know, I thought what you've already accomplished as a team is just so incredibly amazing. And I know that in our district, we can do a lot more with math, and we've already started. You're back in the classroom now, right, where you were interventionist, now you're having to fill in for the classes that were cut, that were, no? So are you going for Spivey at this point, or are you?
So I've been in the class, in Mr. Spivey's class, since October. But never a full-time teacher in Mr. Spivey's class.
So is it possible to continue with this momentum? I'm just thinking of, the load that you have, that everybody has in a full-time teaching, even having prep period still available and not teaching a fifth. Is it fair to say that this momentum that you've already as a team established will be able to continue if we don't have someone in that interventionist position continuing to press forward?
There needs to be someone in a strategic position in order to continue that work for the two reasons that I mentioned earlier. And one is there has to be someone who can come and supercharge the meeting time, because it's too precious. Even if we do end up having 25 hours of PLC time next year, compared to the number of hours that a teacher spends in their classroom, their students not planning, right? There has to be someone that can do the things that I mentioned to bring the research, to complete the work that has to be done back office, to coordinate the professional development, to look into the curriculum adoption, and talk about a communication strategy, and all of those things simply can't be done with a team of full-time teachers. You really have to have someone outside the classroom in order to do that, and perhaps most importantly, to connect the critical teams that I was talking about. A team of full-time teachers just simply can't do that. It takes time during the business day to go and collaborate with the TOSA team, collaborate with admin team, meet with counseling team, meet with Mark Malone, to connect all the teams together. Yeah, that's just it has to be part of it to keep that going.
And I think it also is important to have the right person in that position. It's not everybody who can step into that role, because change is hard, change is scary. And having the right players together to be able to trust in the process and take that lead, knowing historically how math has been in the district, what you as a team have accomplished is just spectacular, and so excited, and I want it to continue. So I know that we have a lot of moving parts within the district, but I think that in terms of discussing with students about their testing results, I know within our household I would do that, but I also know from experience when my kids was in elementary school talking about the STAR testing, then it was a big aha moment for kids to realize that they can answer one question wrong for every 4 and still be considered in the top level. That a lot of the kids would quit. I mean, it seems like you guys have also been able to establish value of the testing, which has been missing. So in terms of district success moving forward, I applaud both of you in terms of what you've been doing, the journey that you've already started the district on, and I think it's critically important that it continues. How do we support that?
Thank you.
So, question is, how do you?
Asking you a real question.
Yeah. So the compliment is there, and I don't want to say anything nice about Steve. So but how do we continue to support that?
Position. Continue the position. That's it. Yes, continue the position. I mean, that the chats, the one-on-one chats, if you talk to kids, the announcements, it's here's your data on your data file, in your Aries file. That's not going to work. It's one-on-one. It's one-on-one chats, just like the one-on-one chats with the EL students. Those make huge differences. And it's that personal connection, and to have somebody that not only has the time to do that, but also taking that and running with it in terms of looking at the materials, the curriculum, the supports. How can we, I mean, the after school tutoring is not, it hasn't been working forever. So how do we do during the day? How do we do during the day supports and interventions for students? That's a whole nother question. I know it takes it into a whole nother level of conversation, but that's another thing. We are seeing after school tutoring in the secondary level or at the high school level not work year after year because of the commitments by the kids with jobs, with the sports, with extracurriculars. It's just not happening the way it's intended to happen. So it's like having somebody dedicated to working on these issues and being able to make the connections between the curriculum, the supports, and the team and the resources needed to be able to drive it forward is essential.
I'll just add, because Chris is very humble, so I'm gonna have to add that, you know, he's also been really spearheading the after school interventions and math team. We've taken that time during that time with students. And so, yeah, I think just to say that Chris is a unique individual, special individual. You know, we had some luck, we had some other things, but Mr. Lonzo is powerful piece to all this. I think it's apparent, obviously, with his description, obviously, his dedication. I mean, you talk about the hours of it. I mean, he's one of the last people to leave every day, on top of the fact that, you know, he's running curriculum for Mr. Spivey's class, checking in, knows all the students, providing data, and then going back to research for the team, et cetera, et cetera. So we won't tell you those things. So I just want to let you guys know it's, you know, really working a lot of extra hours. And admin designated right now this week, so he's learning that as well and getting his cool experience supporting Tori. He's also the site leadership, what we call a chair, taking on that job. He's, you know, doing those PowerPoints. You know, we work on areas and all. I mean, we have a lot of plays, you know, together, but and Chris is just basically the school in a lot of ways, you know, just and then connecting team. So I know he's not going to say all that. Kind of didn't say his name as the interventionist, but very, very. I have to say thank you to Chris. He's made a great difference and really supported the work of the TOSA team and really helped tremendously. I think you see a model of what we would love to utilize moving forward with teams. We know how to do it, you know, in a sense it's working and we can replicate it. So for MPA, the other teams and things like that. So thanks.
Something else that I wanted to just add in terms of not all standards are alike. When talking about math, like, you know, it's where I imagine this is the same with other core subjects as well. But being able to backward map down to kindergarten in terms of what are those critical standards and make sure that our teachers are being strategic all the way through our district so that we have that focus rather than looking for mastery instead of coverage for the, you know, for what's critical. And oftentimes in the more primary grades, they aren't as familiar about what will be as foundational and what will be the things that could be not as much of a priority if time is limited. So I would love to see this extended once it's just not just articulation, but prioritization and being able to make sure that we have active mapping all the way through.
Yeah, and that's the power of connecting teams, right? So we have a middle school team, their primary team, connecting them can drive change through the, you know, really powerful change through the whole system. And just to kind of piggyback on what Steve was talking about, I took those positions, admin position, a collaborator with TOSA team, school site council, and site leadership chair. I took all those positions because I believe in. It's a lot, but I took those because I really do believe that that's the key to driving those big systematic changes that we're looking for, is connecting all those teams. And if I could be the common link between all of them, well, then that was an opportunity that had to be taken, right? Because that's the big win here, right? That's the position that's the power that a person in a strategic position can bring, is connecting all those pieces to drive change. And to respond to your previous question, there are ways to support and certainly support just supporting the initiatives that we're trying to achieve. Just helping us to keep the dialogue going, because school board has contacts with all of these groups, and just keeping the dialogue. What are you working on now in the math department would start a conversation that I'm sure that we would see opportunities for collaborations. The school board is an important part of the team. Is an important team that needs to be connected just like all the others. And I can respond in writing if you'd like, on maybe more specific opportunities that we can engage in just to get going. Okay, perfect.
Anything else?
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Actually, hold on, Steve, sorry, real quick, I know you were like, wow, Cindy didn't ask me a question. Okay, so ELA, the follow-up, I know you said June was the last meeting with Kira with the English department. Has there been interest expressed by the English department to maybe have a couple of check-ins next year with her?
Well,
Just because I know that there's been a lot of work in.
yeah, I mean, I think obviously Heather has been involved in those kind of decisions as far as bringing in consultants and all that, but the team is moving forward, and I think I think they have a good connection with the consultant, and I think we definitely should incorporate adding some possible check-ins, and I think we possibly would encourage MPH to do a similar type of exercise to model kind of, or to connect and possibly to the same person, so that articulation happens really naturally. The difficulty is, for me, is I attach 3 schools and 2 subjects, and being in all those areas is that's why having Chris and great, and then obviously Lucy, Claire, and having teachers go back in the classroom to bring Laura on board. So the more support we can get, and possibly outside in connecting, and just helping us go back and do that research and connect and support the teachers. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody from an outside perspective as well. As well as the inside perspective. And then I think having what we've modeled with Chris through the math team and what we've done, we certainly will see the results. That will become apparent if it hasn't.
Feedback has been that having someone from the outside objectively look at what needs to be done, and then the team working together to have and having buy-in with instead of each individual teacher being said, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then we'll come together and we'll have all the pieces of the assessment. You're going to do assessment 1. It hasn't ever worked. And this is the first time I've heard positive feedback from the process, and that they actually liked it and they actually want more of it. So I just think that was really amazing to hear.
Well, and English teachers are very passionate people who are very passionate about their emotional connection to their content. And so, it takes some looking, taking a step back and looking from a different lens, and that having a consultant who's done it in other sites and things like that in other schools, and bringing some of those personalities together. I mean, it was great. And I think it's something we should also again pursue. If it's working, why not build on that and continue and then further the work? And certainly we want to move in and start building better assessments that align to that. But you can't build those assessments if people are teaching different standards at different times or different curricula at different times. So that piece of prioritizing standards, the same model for English. They just have less standards than one for sure. So it's prioritizing standards, same exact formula that Chris laid out is going to work. So I think we laid the foundation of English was step 1, which was that document that they created and that work that they did, and walking away happy, and having a math team that is excited to meet. I mean, Mr. Olson is still here because he wants to see Chris and I hang out. So I mean, or he just wants to wear his sandals on one of them. So Anything else?
No. You want me to make up a question?
Soccer night last night went great. I'm sorry, till 10 also, so. Thank you all for listening and thank you all for supporting what we've done this year. It means a lot. It's felt difficult at times, but it feels really great. And I just have to say, even though Tori left, her permission, oh, there she is. Sorry, she left my site. And obviously Heather has been one of the best people I've ever worked with. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And by the way, thank you for letting me know who the interventionist is actually.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you for waiting for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
We know it was a long day.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being so efficient.
So we're going to move on to setting direction, 9.2 board LCAP discussion, budget priorities, setting direction for LCAP.
Good night.
Good night, thank you. And we have Heather still here.
I'm not gonna say, I'm not asking you questions. Oh, as a resource?
Yes, as a
Oh, got it,
resource
got it.
for LCAP.
Okay. So,
And she actually put some resources there for discussion. Goal number 1, increasing learning and support for professional development. Just a reminder, all of this is about improving student outcomes.
so in listening to Mr. Wallace and Mr. Lonzo, it reminded me of something that WASC has actually said in their walkthroughs. That we have a tendency in our district to start something and not allow it to go to its full potential of making a difference. And I agree with that. We start a lot of programs and we don't stick with them. And so in seeing and also seeing the story put together with Carl, the math interventionist is someone that I really feel passionately about keeping with it, maybe expanding the duties to help MPH, that whole idea of what Jordan said, like the whole idea of backward mapping downwards, of having somebody, it's Heather Dominguez always, of the focus of being able to do what is being done currently. I just think that we're seeing some positive results, some positive step forwards. That doesn't mean that we're going to see instantaneous jump in 40% in our math scores, but it's definitely laying the groundwork to solving an issue that has just been thorn in our side. I really believe in the TOSAs. I really, the work the EL TOSA Laura is doing is just fabulous, having those one-on-one conversations and chats with students and getting students just, I think EL is an area, the outreach, and we've talked about the outreach to EL parents and having them more participatory. I know those conversations are probably happening at the sites as well. I'm gonna let somebody else talk because I have a whole list.
Historically, our math scores have been abysmal, and I want that to change. I want us to become a school district that is known for having excellent education across the board. Language arts, science, social studies have have been anywhere from great to they have been solid all the way through. But math has always been a problem. I'd like us to actually to really address it, and I think it's already starting to happen. I'm really excited, and I'd love to have that as being a real continued focus. Not letting anything else slip, but really look at raising math within the district all the way through. So that's one of the things that I really would like us to focus on for increasing learning and supporting professional development to be able to make sure, goal 1. I think if we try to do too much, we're not going to be able to do anything as well. So being able to focus on math in the year to come would be lovely.
as a part of the LCAP discussion, goal number one, there were a number of things that came out from parents, students, and staff that were there. Some of which was even just the ideas of seeing that habit training and strategies go across all grade levels, not just high school, but all grade levels. Could we do career pathways from elementary to high school? There was even concern about the fact that a number of students, how should we say, are not motivated to really do well on the tests, like CASP, and what could be done to encourage students to see that there's value for them. If you'll notice, one of those notes on the screen that we had earlier was incentives for doing well on the test. Food is a motivator. Awards, extra credit, upbeat music on testing days, and a positive environment and both spirit to bring people together and feel more upbeat. In other words, to encourage them to want to do well, because there's actually kids like, oh, we don't care, it doesn't matter. And frankly, in the discussion in LCAP, those one things that came out was that, just doing it because, oh, this somehow helps the school is not a motivator for students. It's got to be a value to them. There were several items there about increasing learning and support for professional development.
And I think that the DF rates, that is something that historically we've struggled with, even pre-COVID, which of course affects the A through G rate, which is my whole thing, but it's like the DF rates, having some way to make sure it's not just, summer school isn't just about credit recovery, that it's grades, grade recovery, and that we have opportunities for kids to be able to get those D's and F's up to C or better, so that happens for them. They then have more opportunities. We talked about this ad nauseum, I think. So the after school program tutoring, does that really work? Is it effective? If that's not effective, then having the harder conversation of how do we do the during the day interventions and supports for kids that really are struggling. And
so Cindy, it's about the timing of the tutoring, not that tutoring doesn't work.
no, it's the time after school. And after school, it's that issue has been, I've watched it both at MPH and the high school. The idea of holding it after school, there's been different ways to go about doing it in terms of identifying the kids, reaching out to the kids, and it just doesn't seem to work out to meet the vision of what we really need it to be. And here at the high school, you ask the kids about coming after school tutoring, they just have other conflicts and it doesn't become important to them. And so we have them from 7:10, till 2:07, and that is our quality time to get those supports. So then that's another conversation. How do we do that? How do we capture that time?
What you just mentioned a moment ago, though, is I think part of what we're dealing with results from COVID is that apathy. And student apathy, from what I understand from teachers and just National School Board Association talking with board members from across the country, is that there's this certain malaise that we have to overcome. And it definitely is coming through in the classroom. And with that apathy, maybe looking at our career pathways or other kinds of motivators so that there's a built-in so what for students to get them more excited about the work that they're doing. But I think that it's going to be critical for us to address that apathy in order for us to be able to be successful.
It is concerning that our D's and F's have increased. Is that not true? Especially during COVID. D's and F's have increased, and also it doesn't look like we have the energy to provide summer school, summer school, so secondary specifically, that's concerning.
So my question is, Bill, I'm gonna piggyback, I'm not interrupting, I'm piggybacking on that sentence before I forget. So then can we look to outside resources, whether it's retired teachers or entities that we can bring up to do those in-person grade recovery, not credit recovery?
Could we go outside in some way?
Other districts have gone outside.
Anyone? Heather, do you want to respond, Michelle?
There are some alternatives to this, but they're for the most part remote. Every district is facing a lack of teachers. For lack of a better word, saying just need to wait. I get you next year, but I can't get you this year. As far as retirees, most of them are going to come back for the summer school session. And then those recent retirees have to choose because they still need their 180 days of gap time. My concern with going to some of the outside agencies, you start to look into job board, you start to look into Teach for America, and you're bringing in brand new, on paper qualified, but they've never taught school before, they've never had a curriculum course, they've never had that really concerns me about bringing in like Teach for America or something like that. And you don't think you're going to get the success you want with that without a strong team, right? And I know it sounds bad, but I think our teachers are willing to do summer school, see the need for grade credit recovery, but.
So my question is that there are schools that literally start the conversation about summer school in September, not in terms of like, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna, but laying the groundwork. And so then you start at January, really hitting it hard. So are we gonna start laying the groundwork a little bit earlier so that we can have more buy-in? Because, you know, having teachers teach summer school, I mean, it has been inconsistent ever since I've been in this district.
And I think just from prior experience, I would tell you that summer school is typically, and I don't know for RIM, but for typically, if you allow advancement and remediation at the same time, it changes your population of students, it changes the mindset of teachers, it allows for some additional opportunities where maybe you have the student needs math, so maybe you advance in social studies where they were successful. You take them as a junior through U.S. history, between their sophomore and junior year, opening up the opportunity in junior year to repeat that opportunity for the 92. So it's creativity in that I think is doable. But I think if you're only going to have a remedial summer school, we're not going to find success in the abilities of staff to do that after what they've gone last 2 years.
We didn't have it before COVID either. So that's what I'm saying is that addressing this issue in a more creative manner to be able to get the end result that we want, which is grades, increasing grades, therefore increasing academic success on math placement tests, you know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, we keep talking about, and I know it's a challenge to give teachers. So I think maybe having a way to be able to have a conversation that opens up creative doors on how to tackle this problem.
Possible idea is second semester for secondary for students who failed first semester, being able to provide that instead of them continuing on the second semester of that coursework. Not having it be A, B as opposed to a year, having a whole nother year to be able to have to go back to restart it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Basically, you're talking about an IF restart that semester, so that we're not continuing down the misunderstanding or misconnection. Skill. That's definitely something that could be looked at. In that, I think it's very palatable to staff, especially that's something that they're like, okay, I can handle this. So, more time. I also think you've done a really good job this year of splitting summer school to a full day and kind of a shorter period of time. I think that's much more appealing for folks to look at to say, okay, I'm going to commit to these 10 days for you, it's 12 days for you, but it's all day, I get that, rather than you want me for 4 weeks. And
Half days, right?
And is ours only for remediation?
right now, it was focused on remediation, but this year we didn't say anything, we just said it was really good to teach it, let's talk.
Because there was one year that we did create it, that you said, hey, what do you want to do? Mr. Weitzel, you want to do, I forgot what he did, but it was pretty fun. So it's also the fun stuff. And then, Heather, I have a question in terms of our early readers in comprehension. Because I know that I haven't seen the STAR stuff. How are we doing with our littles, like up to 3rd grade? Well, we don't have all of our data yet school year, but from what I'm hearing from the DRAs, the records that you're doing is on all.
Thanks.
One of the things we invested a lot of resources into were the DRA kits for the running records for all of our elementary teachers, which really gives the teachers a lot of information because you're reading one-on-one with a student and really getting an idea of where their errors are and what can be prompted for corrections. But we do, I think, need to go back to some training for small groups, like what was referred to earlier. Because we're not seeing as much of that small group. So I think that's a focus for some professional development. And that was a target that we had for this year, but then when Claire moved to Washington, some of those things that we had wanted to focus on had to kind of go by the wayside, and we had to move Joseph back in the classroom. So some of the things we were trying to focus on this year, we didn't get to fully realize. We are seeing our little guys not as proficient at the earlier levels, and a lot of them just struggling with how to be in a classroom with other kiddos. So I have heard that from the younger students.
Yeah, that's the conversations that our 3rd graders really are struggling with reading, with comprehension, since they've had the first 2 years basically of distance learning. So one, addressing that issue is to go back to that real strong small group learning.
More guided reading kinds of things, small group, pulling groups over during, instructional time, universal access, those kinds of things.
So basically going a little bit, pulling back and refocusing. Okay.
Was not having volunteers in the classroom for the majority of the school year creating difficulties doing small group learning?
I don't know that was the primary, and I have not heard that as being a primary concern. I think it's just more the level that the students were coming back from the distance learning. And so I think our teachers are feeling like there's so much to, you can't teach 2 years worth of information. And so that's why what they were talking, what Chris and Steve were talking about in terms of that focusing, having the opportunities to come together in grade level teams to say, what are those key essential things that kids have to know at this? We can't, the standards, they say it would take 22 years I think to teach all the standards that are out there. We know we can't teach every single little standard. So what are those big picture items that we really need to focus on? And, having teachers have the time to come together to make those decisions about what are those essential standards that we're going to focus on, and these are the non-negotiables. That some of the work that the leadership teams were working on with, we had planned with Innovate Ed to work with the leadership teams to really bring the STAR reports in, focus them on particular skills that the kids were either strong in and we can leverage. Sometimes we're very deficit minded, and so it's not always about what deficits are, but where are we doing well that we can improve. But a lot of those workshops didn't happen because of our substitute shortages, because of the COVID outbreak. We had so many things happening this school year that many of the professional learning opportunities we had planned were not able to take place. So it really slowed down some of our progress in that.
So next year is going to be, oh, we're going to implement the 2021-22 plan in 22-23.
Some of the components of it we are.
Right.
Got some of them implemented.
No, I know, but it's
Not
like,
all of them.
yeah,
We had many things we had to cancel. We had to cancel the One Professional Development Day because of our, so there were opportunities for our teachers to have that learning together that weren't able to happen because of our situation we found ourselves in. Either shortages of subs or people be ill. A lot of chronic absenteeism this year from our students, where we're finding that even now as we're doing the CASP testing, we have kids that have been absent for a number of days, and we're trying to get that 95% participation rate, but they're not. We have more chronic absenteeism than we've seen in the past. So lots of challenges, even though we were so excited to bring everybody back after the pandemic to be in person learning, but there were still lots of obstacles even being back in person just because of a lot of things.
Yeah, children need to learn how to attend school.
Yeah, so.
So what's our hope for the future?
Well, I'm really encouraged by a lot of the things that we heard. I think what Steve and Chris were talking about in terms of that team effort and our teacher teams coming together and being able to work collaboratively and having trust with one another, they can be honest and open about where their kids are and what they can do to help each other. I have a strong belief in that as being very, very powerful, which is it's about your culture. It's about people. We're in a people business. And I'm, hoping that we're going to get those PLC days unified across the district where we have those opportunities for our teacher teams to come together at the high school level, the middle school level, and the elementary level in a unified way where there can be some cross, collaboration, those kinds of things. We know teacher efficacy is the #1 impactor of student achievement. What happens every day between a classroom teacher and her students or his students is where the difference is made. So however we can support that happening every day in every classroom is where we're going to see significant impact. Even summer school, the research shows summer school has about a 0.29 impact, which anything 0.45 and above is a powerful impact. But there are other instructional strategies that can happen that have a feedback for students, clarity of focus, that kids know what the expectation is. They know they are being supported and meeting that expectation, and they're providing feedback on how they're doing. Very, very high impact. So those kinds of instructional strategies being implemented daily in our classrooms with high engagement with our kids, that's going to make the biggest difference.
So then how do you ensure that happens? What do you put in place to ensure that happens?
Well, that's a very tricky process.
Exactly. So obviously professional development opportunities, that's what we talk about all the time, but because in the discussion, in kid discussion today, one of the areas of improvement for the high school, because we're talking high school students, is motivation of their teacher to teach them. And it's not that, and they all have teachers that they have connected with. That it wasn't a full swipe at everybody, but it was just that was a common frame of teachers being motivated, engaging.
Just to add though, as far as what I heard from the 2 different groups, all of the students in my group said the staff teachers were definitely a positive strength for
Yeah, it's a positive, but then there's also the need of improvement. Yeah, they love the school colors. That was one of our strengths, the school colors.
not get you. I thought that was funny. Oh, yeah, like, it's funny.
There were two other priorities, and one of them actually, again, relates as well, the positive and safe school climate. And one of the things that came out from our students was the discussion of the importance of fun. And even teachers, that there's even summer school or anything like that's got to have some fun to it, some enjoyment to it. And education can be that way, especially if it applies to real life situations and all. So, but there were other concerns too about the school climate, even questions about counselors being more available, the whole mental health of everybody. I mean, let's face it, mental health is an issue for everyone from our superintendent to the youngest student we have. Yeah. What we need to keep doing to try to develop a good mental health and a safe environment for our students on every campus.
I was gonna say that 100%, how are we going to keep addressing that? You mentioned that we have SEL curriculum. Are you saying that there's actual stuff in Kelvin to pull out, and is it being utilized as an SEL?
Yeah, there's a toolbox in Kelvin that's available for each of the different dimensions where they have lessons, but then the schools the elementary schools have actually adopted, well, LA is the leader in the
Right.
Steps to Success is at the BOE and CDG.
Right.
And then they have, I think, the ripple effect here. They were utilizing that not as much. So there are materials available for.
And I think that having access to the wellness center, making sure that that is continuously available for the kids here, and how do we almost mimic that support system on your campuses?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, you know, our counselors here, they are just doing more student at risk help. So that's worrisome, making sure that we continue to have a counseling department that can function in the support, academic supports, as well as crisis management, I guess, even though we don't want to be in crisis management.
Are there any additional COVID resources?
The COVID funds all have timelines and deadlines where we could do some of those resources. But again, those are one-time funds and short. So it wouldn't be ongoing. And we do have positions currently funded out of there, such as the additional counsel and things to keep that department full.
And then one of the big,
We both were leaning towards.
Well, what we were just talking about is the preliminary data that's coming out of the governor's new revise.
Right.
Because it's going to be added funds for mental health purposes.
I thought I saw.
But it also doesn't say ongoing.
It's not.
no, but one of the things that we were discussing at, in Washington, DC, and in the meeting of the Department of Health, of Education, is the fact that there is a lot of one-time money that came to us from the federal government. So of course, there's a bill that is proposing, and we were asking for support of extending the expenditure of the ESSER monies by 2 years to give us more time to do more focused and thoughtful, intentional work with those funds. So hopefully that passes. But in the meantime, there are districts that are looking at this going, what is the problem like right now? Our kids are needing this support right now. We're not going to worry about ongoing, this is ongoing or not. Right now, this is what we need. And we will do these programs or these staffings in accordance to what is happening on our campuses right now. And it's not to say you can't be concerned about ongoing positions and all that other stuff, but they're really looking at what is happening right now and using those funds to, and some of them are programs that they'll see if they have the ability to keep them on, but they're establishing them now to address what is going on now. So hopefully there's an extension of 2 years, but I don't know.
Kind of related to that, Heather, you know that one of the conversations was about are the crisis issues being noted, flagged, if you will, from Kelvin.
The Kelvin probably is not flagging crisis issues. That's more of a quick snapshot and sort of overall, how are people feeling on particular components that we highlighted or chosen to focus on for the year. The crisis components are going to be seen more probably at the counselor level. I know I met with our elementary counselor yesterday, and she's been very active in meeting regularly with students and walk and talks where they go out and they debrief and they diffuse and problem solve the strategies for how you manage your emotions and feelings and when you're overwhelmed and those kinds of things. So she's been very busy actively. So the crisis management happens more at that level than through the Kelvin Pulse. That would pick up probably the crisis pieces.
Another example of some of that might be happening is I get notified on sites if kids put something in their CAS test that is crisis-like or that needs investigation. So I even got one tonight. So I forwarded that to the principal. So, but I was told when I forwarded, the principal already gets it. So they are, there's different ways that we're finding out.
I'm going to take back a little bit of what I just said, because there actually is within the Kelvin system, there is a question where students can say, I would like an adult to reach out to me. And we usually get about, it's late, so my brain is not. We usually get, 20 to 25 of students at all levels. We do the pulses from 4th grade and above that will reach out. And, when the counselors we make sure that we contact all of those students. Some of them are just kids kind of wondering what's going to happen if they put that down. They're not really in a crisis mode. But like I said, the elementary counselor did share with me that there was a student that it was very good that he had indicated that he was needing some support, and she was able to provide that support for him. So it does address when the pulse is happening. Yeah.
So something in addition to positive and safe school, piggybacking on what I think was Cindy said earlier, as far as having fun, is within the group that I spoke with. Group that I spoke with today, along with various folks, have had concerns about various traditions being lost and opportunities that have diminished within the district. In terms of field trips, we have fewer and fewer field trips, and so kids aren't having the richness of experience. Part of that is COVID. We really couldn't do field trips, but having that positive thing to look forward to, being able to have fun. Some of the ASB students today had stated frustration about a lot of things that have been done in the past. For example, having wear white to sporting events and providing the white out for various reasons, and understandable in terms of what's happening in society. That they're hearing a lot of no, which makes a lot of frustration, and is making school less fun place to come to. So
Senior Walk is coming back this year, and so we're starting to see some of those things come back little by little. But I know COVID has had a big impact, and there have been things that have had to be no because of the safety restrictions or health restrictions, but I think bringing those back, it binds people together, gives them something to look forward to. And we are seeing more of those at the end of this school year than we've seen in the past. So that's hopefully a positive move in the right direction.
And fantastic. I'm wondering if there also might be looking, years to come, is possibly in terms of field trips, being able to, gas won't be too expensive, but find ways to be able to make it easier to allow those things to happen, or when there is a no in terms of what students wish to do, provide the why, but also provide the no, we can't do this, but let's brainstorm some other ideas, and being able to not just have it in the left block.
It was very obvious that the desire for maybe some more traditions.
That came up in our meeting too.
Yeah. Gotcha. Switching to priority number 3 with family engagement. One of the items that was on there, we do text messages for a snow day or some kind of emergency like that. Is there ability to do some kind of text messaging for other things, special events or whatever to communicate? And do we do
Look
that?
at Mark, Mark is like, yes, lots of those. Sometimes people say we need too many. The school has too many.
Well, if we did get that there, maybe people are getting too many emails. We have students even saying that they're getting too many emails. But the thought was that the text messaging might be better than some of the emails that we're sending.
We do that all the time.
I think we actually, like, when we went back and had a conversation after that meeting, and we do a text, email on the website, whatever, phone call, however we can get it out. That's how it's sent, so.
And the sites do their own when they have events. So.
And let's face it, we are in an information overload culture that is getting emails from your job, from your friends, your neighbors, the warranty that just went out on your car, and there's just so much to try to wade through that unfortunately good, important information gets lost.
Yeah, it's hard to navigate 125 emails every day and follow up on the ones from the day before and then the day before and then keep up with the ones that are coming. It is a lot of overload of information.
I also received feedback in terms of information from some community members and some from families. When they go to our website seeking information, they have a hard time finding it. So possibly looking at ways to be able to make it more intuitive so that when folks are looking for specific things, they can be more user friendly.
In addition to that, is there a way for us to update the website? There's been more than one event I've been at recently that the website had it at a different time than the actual event. From an open house to a science night to just the
School
website.
site administrators have to update their calendar. We cannot do that for them and they have to remind them.
So the main district website is also then tied to the school site.
Yes.
websites. And that's where it's not necessarily happening.
Even our own principal doesn't get to events because the calendar.
So what do we do about that?
Not to solve that right now, but let's make note of it.
There's my question.
We have to bring it up in management meetings. And the next step would be disciplinary. I mean, we want to do that on the student. That's what we have. Our evaluation process.
Well, one of the things that came out is somebody actually was saying that they've seen great improvement regarding informing the community of school situations, events, snow days, meetings, etc. So even though we're seeing things not always accurate, there's been improvement. Anything else, ladies, on LCAP?
AMD completion rate, that's all it is.
Here.
And math interventions.
Actually, one other thing with family engagement is continuing to provide better solutions for our Hispanic population, making sure that we're able to get information to them as easily as possible and for them to communicate with us as easily as possible.
I just thought of something. Okay, so we're going to be required to have every single child, unless they opt out, senior, do the FAFSA. So the whole thing is that in having discussions in the college health class, how is there a possible way to bring in some kind of expertise, because the English teachers and the teachers are not FAFSA experts. Our counselors, you know, they do the FAFSA, they can do the FAFSA, but they also have, you know, is that what we're going to task them with every single student, senior? So is there a way to be able to bring somebody in for a short amount of time to help the students complete the FAFSA? Since we now have that requirement, we will have that requirement. That's it. And there's also a culture issue, Heather. Just there are
parents that think that Big Brother, once they have their tax return link, they're gonna freak out. So there's an educational process for the benefits of completing a FAFSA. But I know but we have to get it out, or they have to fill it out. I mean, we have to, it's a requirement, it's gonna be a requirement, so that's.
Plus, we have the A through G grant, so that's one of the things that we can utilize that for, if that's something we choose to do.
I think that's something to
To
talk
talk that without it being impacted.
Yes, exactly. And then the college and career support, the whole thing, and it starts at kindergarten, but in terms of on campus here, I think how can we help improve that support of maneuvering in a manner of being able to do career using virtual job shadowing more effectively. I know that we had that 30-minute period during the day for intervention. You could also do career opportunities and college searches, just saying. But we just need to be better at that environment and being able to give the kids the support. Counseling, a strong counseling is what, you know what I'm saying. It's just, it needs to, if we're going to be judged on college and career success indicators in our college going rate and all that other stuff, it's like, okay, how are we going to do that and provide that support?
I'm surprised that the trustee seat next to me has not suggested that some of the best people that we could bring in are PTA members who have had students go on to college, who have filled out the FAFSA. They might be the best candidates to come help give some.
Not for FAFSA, because if you give the kid incorrect information, it costs them money, because there's also the components of the FAFSA that you don't put certain things on the FAFSA. You don't do certain investments. If you put them on the FAFSA, you lose money. And I don't think any PTA parent is going to want to be.
No one's qualified to answer those questions.
Actually,
I believe that
there
there's
are.
a county software program that's going to be assisting us with getting the FAFSA completion. I'm having memory loss.
Well, we're gonna be partnering with the CCGI, California Colleges Guidance Initiative. And that is, I believe, one of the components of something that they can support us with. So like we just, the high school team and myself met with them this week. I think it's on Friday. We'll learn about that on Friday tomorrow. But that's one of the things that they can help give us some recommendations for.
And they presented it as superintendent. Yeah, that is a component that will help all districts that need help with students completing the FAFSA getting done.
As well as our A through G, and they have a great way of supporting with A through G as well, alignment.
Good.
We try to, in terms of utilizing parents to help other parents and students, we do that with Scotts University. We brought in parents of kids that they've just gotten through the college admission process to talk about, this is how it was for me, watch out for that, and having that kind of thing. But in terms of a FAFSA, I don't know if our parents would be comfortable with saying, here, let me do your FAFSA for you, you know?
Well, I was not suggesting that any parent do someone else's FAFSA.
Yeah, so just saying.
Most schools have assigned a counselor to become the expert. And I know they've got a lot on their plate, but to be able to hold that trust, because for a lot of parents that are going to be hesitant to do this, it would be a requirement that they have to have a rapport relationship first with the person, and the counselor is the one connection. We can use the outside folks and have an assist in the room, but it's going to be critical that it's going to be faces that our families recognize or names they know.
Jessica Erlinger, who's our AVID coordinator and AVID teacher, in having her students complete the FAFSA. She's already been confronted almost every year by a parent who's torqued about having her even ask their child to do a FAFSA or their family to do a FAFSA. So that's what I'm talking about, the educational piece and trying to tamp down the fear factor of completing a FAFSA.
And I think in the fall, we start with messaging those requirements and changes. So
In
that it's
Arizona,
not a
actually,
shock.
We actually did multiple FOSFO workshops and tried to set them at different times for parents that would fit their schedules.
It has to be several because the FAFSA workshop this past year and in the past hasn't been as well attended as you would think. Very minimal for attendance.
It's true, but now, as you just mentioned, it's not going to be a requirement. So
I know, I think Michelle's right, that messaging, because I don't think parents are aware that it's going to be a requirement or an opt-out.
And remember, incentives work well. And so I think sometimes we forget that little kids always like their incentives, but big kids do too.
Yep.
And so
Pizza. Yeah, we got it. Food. That's what
Pizza.
that's what the kids said.
pizza
It was
or tangible on
food.
senior things, an extra senior asset, an extra senior, when you complete this, you get X. Very minimal cost on our end, but very highly desirable.
Like I've done with the ribbons for attendance, I supply those. So the sites,
A mug so that they can go and get a hot drink in the morning, and there's a continual reminder every meeting you have, there are other people with those mugs.
Okay, anything else with LCAP?
Why are you looking at me?
I'm looking at both of you, if you noticed.
Oh, okay.
It's both of you. If not, then we're going to move on to 9.3.
Okay, I'm making a motion to table this. We're at 9:40 and we're missing 2 board members. And I know Michelle worked really hard on her presentation, but I think that all of us are getting fried, and I think the other 2 should be part of seeing that presentation.
I second that motion.
There was a motion to table to May 25. You actually said it, April.
No, but Bill, you did as the
So
awesome leader.
we table it to May 25,
Yes, please.
and that was Cindy.
Or 20, should I vote on that?
25, right?
26.
26?
What?
26.
Oh.
Thursday, the 26th. All right. Motion to table to May 26th by Cindy, second by Deanna. You both agree to the date?
2000.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, carry. 9.4, board retreat agenda ideas. I entertain a similar motion.
I think we should table this as well. There's 2 missing, plus we're going to have a new superintendent. I know that all of us agree that we need to start initial work on the mission vision for the district, but I think that the rest of it needs to be worked out with the new superintendent.
You also have not selected a date, and we were waiting for that.
We kind of looked at it. Like considering, should we wait?
Yeah, I think we table the whole thing, with everybody's calendars, and we can
Because
work
it's
this to
stacked.
agenda ideas and date.
Okay.
So we are simply tabling that discussion until May 25. Is that, are you voting?
May 26th.
Thank you, May 26th. I have it correct.
Bill really wants to do back-to-back meetings.
All right, so there you moved.
I move to table this discussion till May 26th.
I second that.
All those in favor of tabling till May 26th, say aye.
I
Any opposed, carried unanimously. 10.0 action calendar. 10.1 business services approval to accept, award, and issue a notice to proceed to Schneider Electric for design build energy services, including additional services for securing funding. Fiscal impact $99,000. Restricted general fund.
so moved. Second.
Motion Cindy, second Anna.
So just a quick brief, what it is.
Okay, also waiting in the wings is the vendor that we've been waiting for. If you want to hear from Rachel, she's on our Zoom. So we can invite Rachel to the conversation to give a quick 2 or 3 minute.
If she's on, yes.
She's been working at home while she's been waiting for us. So, but we've been texting. So Rachel, I want to introduce Rachel. And Rachel, our board, and thank you for being so patient today.
Thank you.
If you don't mind giving just, 2, 3, 4 minute rundown of what we've been working on.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I've been, as Jenny mentioned, I've been listening in, and it sounds like there's a bunch of exciting things happening within the district. And so I appreciate you guys having me and listening to what I have to say. I didn't actually plan to say anything for 2 minutes, so I will just kind of give a project rundown and what we've kind of been discussing so far. So I'm Rachel Torgerson. I'm with Schneider Electric, and I have been working with Jenny and the facilities and M&O team for about 2 or 3 months now to start developing some modernization facility improvement projects for your district. And we have just started those conversations, a little bit, so we're not too far. I can't get too into detail because I think we still have a lot of discussions to be had, but what I can do is tell you a little bit about Schneider and who we are, give you a little background. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so we are established in 1836, and we have grown into a global specialist energy management, efficiency, and infrastructure type company. So our operations span more than 100 countries, but in short, we really offer the backing and resources and stability of a large company, but also the stability business operations within the ESCO space is a much smaller division. So really, it's the best of both worlds. We, as I mentioned, have the backing and the resources to provide our clients, resources. For instance, grant writing, and which has been a conversation that we've been having. Jenny and team have been meeting almost weekly with me as we research and look towards any and all grant and funding opportunities that are out there right now. And then, as I mentioned, my division, the ESCO space, is a smaller piece of, and so it's all local resources that you'll be working with. So myself and my project managers, my engineers, those are all in-house, and we're all local, which is fun. We get to come to the table and work as one big team. So we operate as an extension of the district through design build work. And we always typically have an emphasis on the energy side of things. So essentially, we work with our clients as a true partner to design and implement comprehensive solutions that have an emphasis on modernization and improving learning environments. It's a very collaborative approach. And in turn, this really helps administration, any administration burden that districts, especially small districts, encounter when working on so many projects. So we work on all project sizes and scopes, and every client is obviously different. And it's been really a wonderful thing to, I'm going to say, actually start working again with Rim of the World. I was having conversations with Jenny and Michelle prior to COVID, and that took a little bit, COVID happened, and then we got back on track just recently. And so we've really been talking about HVAC replacements, and I know that is an important scope item for the district. We've also been looking at some security scoping options. There's money out there right now for that. And so we have been kind of in the process of writing the grant to receive those funds and apply for that. And we are, with your approval to move forward, we'll start auditing your sites in the next week, actually. So Jenny, I don't know if there's, and apologies, I was just going to make sure I was on for any questions that you guys might have. So I didn't prepare too much. So Jenny, is there anything you'd particularly like to hear from me?
So actually, I wanted to share with the board that one of the things that when we went through the request for proposals, and we had, I think, about 3 or 4 companies submit proposals for this concept of we have COVID money that can be used on infrastructure. That's what we started with Paul. And so when Paul, when we came and presented to you, I'm really thinking of, okay, we've set some money aside in COVID that can be used to improve our HVAC infrastructure. And the money we have available in COVID didn't even touch what we needed to do. And so that was a little disheartening. And it really started thinking, well, we need a bond to pass to address the big picture items after Paul did his assessment. And one of the engineers that Paul worked with was formerly at one of the high desert schools districts as a director of maintenance and facilities. He said to Paul, I need to bring in Snyder Electric. I need, RIM is a prime candidate for their services because you have a small amount of money, but you might be able to leverage some projects if you can tap into some grants that are out there. And when, so Paul and Dale, I don't have his last name off the top of my head, but they met with us and brought Rachel in. And we kind of were saying, okay, RIM's a lose situation in the UPP and in our poverty rate, we're poor but not poor enough. And it was like, wow, we really don't have some of the resources that other districts have. And then we started talking about, what is out there for a district like RIM if they don't have a bond, because our infrastructure will need attention to it, and how do we fund some of those? So that's how the conversation started. And when we went out for the RFP, we had 3 or 4 companies submit proposals, and we really did our due diligence in evaluating them. And Michelle and I personally called other districts that were on the references for these companies. And we have to say, Rachel and Snyder Electric have worked with more San Bernardino County school districts local to us than I think I've seen in any construction project. So they got beyond wonderful remarks from Big Bear, Yucaipa. Who else did we call? Silver Valley. We called a few. And,
good. We do recommend everyone to call our references and our clients, because I'll say, and sorry, I hope I'm not interjecting here, but I came from the industry. So I've been with Schneider for only a few years, but one of the reasons I went to Schneider is because of the work they do with districts such as yourselves, ones that are small, they're rural, maybe they can't pass a bond, they don't have financing issues. So there's a lot of different layers there, right? And it's how do we build a project? We still have need. Every school district has need. And so Schneider does a really good job of providing support in these situations. And so that's why I joined the company and why I also promote it to clients, because I think that we really can support and find a solution to help you.
And part of the, I guess, the pitch with Paul and Dale and Rachel's team was kind of looking at the grant opportunities that are out there right now. And, what can RIM apply for? What can we? And we, it's very difficult in-house to do the work to go after some of these grants. And I think that RIM, we tend sometimes to be like, I'd love to go out for that grant for whether it's something curriculum or for whatever it is, but who's going to do the work? Who's going to write the narratives? Who's going to do so it's very time consuming. So there was some excitement that got on our team, like, wow, we could have a partner in this. right now with COVID and the sale of the district office, there are matching for grants that have a matching component. We have some funds without a bond right now that, okay, maybe there's a 60-40 or 50-50 or an 80-10 or 20, you know, we have some ability now to go after some of these grants with that have matching and leverage what we couldn't use from that investor too, and maybe some of this, you know, depending on what we do with the sale of the building, to say, you know, we might have to find $200,000 to match X, but we get 500 or we get 700, and be able to look at these opportunities, all of which would come back to your approval, of course. But we said, okay, maybe we can address some things, and you know, in talking, Ray, did you know, there's this grant out there, there's this grant out there, and so that's kind of the partnership that we were looking, you know, that we have a possibility that we, with the two sources of money perhaps that we wouldn't normally.
This is one of those opportunities to spend some money, to make some money. And conservatively speaking, what are we thinking we might be able to raise?
Right now, we have, because we don't have board approval yet, you know, there's been some good faith meetings between the two of us after we've accepted their RFP. But, you know, the bulk of the work will come when they start their kind of boots on the ground and audits and assessment of our systems. And they'll build on what Paul's already done as well. And, you know, just right now, we are looking at a COPS grant. I think I mentioned that to you before. And that would, depending on what we get, that looks like it's about a 3-year funding, but anticipated that it will continue. And, you know, there's access control, door locks, fencing, outside lighting, surveillance opportunities. So that's, and what RIM's right eligibility for in 1 year is $500,000. And there's a rural district matching waiver we can apply for. So, you know, that is, you know, just that. There's an EPA natural alternative fuel grant that we'll look at next. And that actually can go for infrastructure and look at maybe a gas bill for our bus station.
Ooh.
I know. So we're kind of going like, what are some of
that is?
Yeah. Cindy can tell you all about gas bill station. So, you know, those are just two off the top of my head, you know, right now, but we, you know, there are several that are out there. We just need to go, you know, to go after them. And in the contract price that you're seeing before you, that really won't be necessarily a check that we write, because as we get grants or as we utilize the COVID money, that fee will get kind of worked into each individual project. So there could be grant funds that cover this cost.
Rachel's confirming everything you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been doing our homework together.
Job, but she's doing a great job. Yes. So she's spot on. I will say there's additional grant opportunities that we're looking at as well. In addition to the ones, Jenny, that you just brought up, there's a DOE energy efficiency opportunity, which would be absolutely wonderful for Rim of the World when we're looking at HVAC replacement. And that one's roughly between 3 to 5 million in award. And that opens this summer with, hopefully, you know, the grant world, you're on their time frame, but I would like to say, please do not hold me to this because I have no control, but you know, hopefully to see those funds by the end of this year. So that's a really exciting one too, that pertains to your needs.
Yeah.
$99,000 is a lot of money. What do we know that we're going to get from it?
Well, I mean, I guess that could be a gamble. But I think right now, what we probably already have gotten from it is some knowledge, is some, you know, opportunities that we've learned on, you know, what it would take for us to go out on our own. And to do some of these things. And one of the things that we haven't talked about is some pre-bond work that Snyder Electric and Rachel does as well. So if we're looking at going out for a bond in 2024, which we've, talked about a little bit, there is some work that could help prepare us for those town hall meetings, for those conversations. What we ran into with Measure A is we'll show you what you need. You didn't, and then when we showed kind of district prepared items, that wasn't an engineer, that wasn't an assessment, that wasn't an architect. And it's like, okay, this is the district needs, and it's a third party verification of that. How we believe, we all work hard, and I think we're all wonderful, but maybe package a little bit ready to, here you go, to demonstrate our need when we go out for another bond.
We're already getting access to grants we didn't know about, helping getting those put together already. And I met with the sheriff's department yesterday and gave them some of the insight of what we're going to need for this first grant, over $5,000. So the sheriff was in agreement with what we were trying to do. So partnership has already been beneficial.
With these grants, do we have any sense of what kind of chance we have of, if we do go for them, what the percentage might be of being able to actually have them awarded?
I don't have that in front of me at this grant, in our probability, this grant. I know just the current one we're working on, the COPS, we have a very high probability of obtaining that one, especially because of their awarded funds for, for this calendar year. They separated the rural districts for funding and regular funding. So we don't have to compete against the LA Unifieds of the world. We're competing against other like schools.
So to make sure I understand, work that we need to do anyway, we can, if we pass this, the $99,000 will be, basically, there's a high probability in your opinion that we'll be able to get that value and more so by moving forward.
We must have brought this if we didn't think that.
Rachel, you agree?
I agree, yes, and I can dive into a little, additional scope. I know we included a section in our RFQ that broke down, parts of what that 99,000 does include. I can dive into more detail if you'd like, but yes, I agree. Room of the World has a very good, they're very competitive on all fronts for the applications that we're currently looking at. And of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on any other grant opportunities that open in the future as well. So I would say that I hope to be coming back to the board with some good news on award applications.
As far as I'm concerned, if Jenny and Michelle have vetted various opportunities and chosen you and are optimistic, then that works for me.
I spoke to 3 superintendents directly, including Callie, Jesse. Who else did I speak to? Oh, they're here.
They've all had success.
Absolutely, yes. I will recommend it.
Good. Any further questions for Rachel?
Or they're still working.
That's good too. Any further questions for Rachel?
One more, in terms of this $99,000, how long will it take in general, best estimate, for us to be able to see any kind of, see grants or, what would the timeline be?
Well, the current grant we're working on, why we kind of did some good faith jump into it and start working on it as a deadline in June for submission. And so that one would, relatively after summer, we anticipate getting some news on that.
Are we ready? Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed? None. Carried unanimously.
Well, thank you guys. I hope to meet you all in person in the near future, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet me and listen to me, and I look forward to working with y'all.
Well, maybe when
Good
we
evening.
future won't be so late.
No worries at all. You know what? Now I'm caught up for Friday. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jim. 11.0 consent calendar. 12.0 future meeting dates, regular board meeting, May 26.
We need to add a correction there. The county did not advise us, but we should have put in here that May 21st, we have a closed session only. Superintendent interviews at 8 a.m. at the district office in Blue Jay. That should have been stated there, but we didn't get that advice until late.
Okay, so that is May 21 is a closed session only. And
For superintendent interviews at 8 a.m. at the district office in Blue Jay.
so closed session only, that means there will not be public comments or anything.
Correct.
What?
no, there's closed session, right?
Yes.
You do have to open session, go into closed session, and have closed session, hold closed session comments. And any decisions you make inside closed session have to be reported out back in open session. But we're not gonna add it, you shouldn't add it to agenda items too.
Are we required to have that on YouTube?
no.
No.
And then the other thing is that any discussion of the final candidate is not reported out because there's a whole, so just making sure you guys know, we're not reporting a candidate.
No. No, there's process to go through.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on that, Ms. Ryan?
No.
Okay, so 12.0 future meeting dates, regular board meeting, May 26, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Rim High School Library, 27400 Highway 18, Lake Arrowhead, California. Regular board meeting, June 9, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Rim High School Library, 27400 Highway 18, Lake Arrowhead, California. 13.0 adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 10:06 p.m.
I second it.
Motion to adjourn at 10:06 p.m. All those in favor say aye.
I
Any